Well, hello YouTube, and welcome back to the Holtzmichel channel. Today we're going to have a little bit of a tool review, more like an AVE style, where we have a Tormek 2000 wet grinder that we're going to kind of take apart and go into some of the technical details on, and take a closer look at this guy. I've been trying to run down, technical information like the diameter of the posts for the tool rest, the distance for the posts. Can't find it anywhere, not even the manufacturer's website. How this thing even works. I mean, they just don't publish any information on it. And YouTube has been pretty scant as well as far as the type of information that's available out there. Most of them are just tool reviews that show how well the thing sharpens and yada yada yada. That's all fine and great, but as an advanced woodworker, I'm not looking just for a sharpening device. There is a wide variety of accessories available for this thing from Tormek, and some of them look to be a little light duty for my taste. So what I want to do later on down the road is make some of my own attachments that are a little more robust, shall we say, that don't flex quite as much when you put pressure on them. So that's one of the reasons I wanted the technical data. And then also I was really curious to see how the thing looks on the inside. So there's several brands out there that are all constructed similarly, but this is the supposedly the cat's meow. So today we're gonna really get looking at this thing. Now, most folks out there are trying to decide whether or not to buy a unit like this, or there are some adaptations for units like this. We'll be taking a look at this Metabo later on in a different tool review, where we're actually going to put it through some paces and see how it does, but not today. I'm just using this thing here as a prop today, just to kind of compare the two as far as whether or not you should buy the Tormek accessories that you can use in conjunction with a unit like this, or to actually invest in one of these. Now, we've got our wood chisels. We'll grab one of these. We're going to do a review, a shootout, and a review on these wood chisels here in a little while in a different video. But one of the things that we're also aware, one of the things we're keenly aware of is the temper in the blades of our tools. And when you're dry grinding, of course, there's always the risk of taking the temper out of the blade, and particularly right at the cutting edge, due to overheating because of the way the grindstone carries off the material. On a wet grind stone, you don't have that problem. You got cooling through water, and then also the water carries off some of the swarf, or most of the swarf, that is generated by the stone, the metal shavings, and also the powder that's created from the contact of the stone and the metal, where the abrasive actually is pulverized in the cutting process, and that's called swarf. So you got to get rid of that. Now, the other thing is, should you buy the water stones? Personally, I would say it all boils down to personal preference. I've been eyeballing one of these for a long time, and finally decided to make the jump and go ahead and get one, so that I have a more consistent, because I'm going to have planer knives later on to sharpen as well, and that was one of the reasons that I wanted the data on the holes, the hole size, the distance between the holes and so forth, is so that I could make an attachment that's large enough, because my planer knives are 500 millimeters, so they're 16 inches wide or 16 inches long, and the attachment that you get from Tormek will only go up to, I think, 30 centimeters, which is about 12 inches. So I'm you know, quite a bit short of being able to actually effectively grind the knives that I have for my big planer on this machine. So the attachment that Tormek offers for it really isn't an option. So that way, you know, so that leaves me having to either make one myself or try to find one. But I'm a machinist enough to where I can make my own and actually make this thing work. So anyway, a lot of rambling and ranting going on here. Again, to the personal preference, you know, like with this, the one thing you would want to make sure you have handy when you're grinding your chisels and your tools on a dry grindstone is that you have a cup of water handy at the ready to keep your workpiece cool. Otherwise, you do run the risk of taking the temper out of the cutting edge. So anyway, let me grab a wrench here. This looks to be like a 17 or a 19. Let's see here. This is actually 19 millimeter. Well, I'll bring the camera in close and we'll take this thing apart and start looking at it up close and personal, so that you guys get an idea of what this, you know, what this dude looks like inside and how it's put together. It's a relatively simple device. I kind of went over a little bit when I got it the other day and started looking at it and see how it was put together. And you know, it's not bad. I mean, it could be worse, it could be better, but we'll compare it. Well, I don't have another unit to compare it to, but you know, Triton makes a similar model to this, and as does, well, Grizzly doesn't make it, but they offer one real similar. It's probably made in China, Taiwan, who knows. But the function is all the same, and I wouldn't be surprised if the accessories all interchange and or even the rest. So with that, let me bring the camera around here and we'll start taking this dude apart. So here we got this. Here's your strop. Now on the newer models you have this outer ring made of plastic. This one's made of plastic, and it does have a grit contained within it for honing your wheels, or honing your tools, I should say. Here's the water stone. This is a let's see. This is a SG 250/220, so this is probably a 220 grit wheel. We're going to go ahead and take these off just right quick here. Now this one comes off on the other side fairly quick, but this one here, it's a right hand twist nut. Yep, sure, drop it on the floor. And it's been on the machine a while, obviously. A little bit of corrosion going on there, so this is the one thing that right off the get-go we're going to have to kind of take a look at. This is, of course, a used machine, and it's obviously been used in conjunction with water, as evidenced by the corrosion here in the washer. So let's see if we can get the stone off of it without too much trouble. Nope, that stone's not going to budge. So we're going to re-secure that for just hand tighten it for now. I got to get the stone off sooner or later, so we'll come back to that here in a bit. So here's our leather strop, or in this case the plastic strop, and again it's just a right hand twist. Got a plastic knob with a brass insert, and this just kind of sticks on. Now the feature on this is kind of cool. You have here your screws that attach the wheel to the hub, and then they poke through and have a little bit of a pip on there, a tip or whatever you want to call it, protruding through here, And right here on the wheel there are some holes that index with these, and you can line this up, and so you have instead of relying solely on the pressure against the arbor, you actually have the pressure or the pins engaged with the drive wheel here. So, and as of course mentioned before, here's the drive wheel. Now the interesting thing, and this is what Triton has done with theirs. Now the motor down here, we have a little, looks like a 10mm shaft. Let's see here. That is an 11mm shaft actually. Yep. So this is a little 200-watt motor with a counterclockwise rotation, and or no, with a clockwise rotation because the stone turns counterclockwise, or the strop counterclockwise I should say. And the interesting thing is this cams down and uses the pressure of gravity against the rubber drive wheel for friction in order to create kind of a slip, limited slip kind of a situation where the wheel, when it's overloaded or jams, if your tool jams up while you're trying to sharpen it, it won't damage the motor. So let's see if we can get this guy off of here. So we can look inside the housing, how this is all set up. This is probably going to be cast on there or pressed on, so it's probably not going to come off. Oh, it will. Okay, great. So here we have our internals. Let me bring the camera around here for a better shot of this. Alright, so here's our 200-watt motor, and it's mounted on the pivot right here, as you can see. This is the capacitor, so I'm thinking this is possibly a motor that you can use in a three-phase configuration, or you know, a higher voltage configuration. Here's our main shaft for the drive. Let me pan this around. Here's our main shaft for the drive. I'm guessing that this pin here, yes it does, this pin engages on the back of the wheel here. Let's see, this pin right here, yeah, it slips back and forth, so it engages the wheel across here to give it a positive drive, so it grabs. But you know, it's awfully loose, so they obviously used the wrong drill size. This should not slip back and forth as easily as it did, so somebody screwed up there, screwed the pooch at the factory on that one. But this is going to be quite alright. Let's see if we can pop this all apart. And we can. Let me slip this all apart here, and we'll continue on. So now I've got our wheel out. Let's see, this looks to be about a 15mm shaft or so. It's 16 actually, and it could be out of stainless. Now of course, this thing being exposed to water would have to be out of stainless. Let's see if we can loosen our arbor here. Guess I'm going to have to get a bigger hammer. There we go. Boy, this thing is not wanting to let go very quick. There we go. So now this is the, like I said, the Tormek 2000. So this is an older unit. It's no longer in production, and this does not appear to be stainless steel. So I guess we'll be making a stainless steel arbor for this thing here somewhere down the line, and then also putting stainless steel washers. Now the one thing that when you're mounting any kind of a grinding wheel to an arbor, and the folks at the factory evidently overlooked this, or whoever bought this machine and did the initial assembly didn't realize, is that you have to have a paper or a flexible washer of some sort between metal, i.e. your washer, and stone. Otherwise, the tension that you put on there, if you put a little bit of grunk on it at all, you're going to end up snapping the wheel. So that was obviously forgotten. There are some plastic inserts I see here in the wheel, so we'll just leave those alone the way they are. But definitely be making a new shaft out of stainless steel. So let me reposition the camera here and we'll get to looking at the inside of this pig. Okay, here we have our motor. This is from the other side. This is kind of hard to read. I'll bring the camera around here and make some still photos that we'll show at the end of the video. This is a Compton Parkinson AC motor made in England. So they spared no expense on this guy when they put it together. Nice little plastic shroud around the fan here. So this is air cooled. So it's the concept here is that this motor is designed to run in continuous duty for quite a while. Now, one of the things I was pointing out with the Triton model is they have a little screw that comes in through the side here. We're looking right straight through the housing here, but Triton has a little screw that goes in through the side of the housing and actually puts pressure on the motor and the wheel in order to increase the friction. Now, the only thing that I'm not real thrilled about are these plastic bushings. These are a UHMW from the looks of it. I guess they'll do for what it's doing here. This thing isn't obviously designed to run 24 hours a day. It does require a little bit of extra lubrication, as evidenced by some of the blackness in here. Let me turn this into the light here a little better. Yeah, there we go. I'll raise the camera up. You can see the blackness in this ring. So the nice thing about this is they're easy to change out. They'd be easier to replicate on a lathe. Wouldn't take much to make a new one in case they do burn up on you or wear out prematurely. So let's see here. What else do we have to look at? Well, we'll turn this around. Seen this side before. Oops, let me zoom out. Here we have our motor shaft, and it's got a little bit of an aluminum splash guard on here to keep the, well, this side isn't the moist side, so it's really not all that imperative, but this seems to be kind of a splash guard to keep any moisture from getting in here. Now there is a little bit of, from the looks of it, some rubber from the friction wheel on the surface of the shaft, and my guess is that it was probably pushed to the point where it stalled the wheel, and the motor just kind of ate into the wheel here. I don't see any evidence of it on here anywhere. Here we go. Right, here's a little dip in the surface of the wheel, so it probably got stalled out here one time or another, and the original owner probably thought, well, I don't need this piece of junk, so that's the reason they sold it. Another nice feature about the motor mount here, there's actually a sleeve. This the shaft is knurled and pressed in, so it can't really escape anywhere. I don't see any. There's another ring down here below. It might have a little set screw in it where it actually allows this to be pushed out. It doesn't appear so, at least at first glance. But there is a plastic sleeve on here to locate this, to keep this whole bracket from sliding back and forth on the shaft. And the motor itself also has another little set screw here that, or a mounting screw that allows it fore and aft movement to bring the shaft further in or out to the friction wheel to adjust for, wear or for tracking or something like that. There doesn't appear to be any other mounting screws here for this bracket other than just this one. Now, the one critical piece of data that I was looking for was on these tool rest holders, and these are 12mm shafts, so these accept a 12mm diameter, so roughly ½ inch, slightly under ½ inch diameter rod. When I get to making the tool rests, we're going to do some modifications to this. You just have a little plastic knurled screw here that goes in. Looks like a 5mm, an M5 thread. This is actually an M6. Yep, it's an M6. And so in the newer models they have a threaded part of the shaft is threaded. Well, we'll leave that out for now, so that you can do some micro adjusting on the height. And then some of the newer ones actually have the threads on both sides. Now, the distance between these, I measured this yesterday, and I do believe it's 90mm. I had a hard time getting in there because of the stone. Yes, it's 90mm on the nose. So in inches that would be, let's see, calculate that out real quick. Oops, 90. So that's 3½ inches. That's 3.543 inches that these are spread apart. So in the like in the T8s, I believe, and T7s and T4s, they also have a holder right here to where you can take this and stick it over here on the other side of the machine and continue on. I'm not sure if I'm going to put it on the front or up here. This is to gain a different angle on the stone, so I'm thinking I'll probably put them up here and maybe additionally here. Unfortunately, that means I'm going to have to do away with the nomenclature tag. But anyway, that's pretty much the ins and outs of this machine as far as the the guts goes. Not really much to it. It's a pretty basic machine as such. Not much to say other than that, so let me slap her back together and we'll kind of do a short review on what we got going here. Well, YouTube, here we have the unit reassembled, back to working order. When I got this unit, it was still in working order. Didn't have to do anything to it as such. Plugged it in, turned it on, ran fine. The stone had been trued up. Not sure how true it is on the arbor now, being as how I did rotate it. I might have to loosen it up and rotate it on the arbor to get it back to where it was. But I'll have to get a truing stone for it later on anyway, so it doesn't really matter. The one thing I did do before I reassembled it, and you'll see this in the pictures at the end of the video, so pay attention there towards the end, is I took a piece of cardboard, oiled it down slightly with the oily side that I oiled, or the oily side to the washers, and that's to prevent corrosion and so forth. And then I also put a little bit of a dab of this oil, that's sewing machine oil, that I got. I forget where I got it, probably off of eBay. But anyway, it's just standard little sewing machine oil. You can use any kind of oil you have, you know, kicking around. You can use WD-40 for that matter. You just don't want to get too much of it on the stone to keep the stone from plugging up. We'll get to talking about the stone here in a few minutes, or you know, at the end of this segment here. Anyway, the oily side out, doodly doodly do. The oily side out to the washers, you know, to prevent the corrosion, and then also to prevent the oil from soaking into the stone. Not that it would hurt anything. It would just add, you know, you might get an oil film on your water reservoir as you're grinding, but you want to keep that stone, you know, as oil free as you can. Doesn't really hurt it if it does get oily, but you know, why ruin a good thing? If it's working good with water straight up, you want to keep it on water. Now, going into this, the one thing that that the manufacturer neglects to tell us is that when you're working with stones like this, and this is something that a lot of folks seem to overlook or neglect altogether, is you need a wetting agent in the water in order for the stone to work properly and clean itself. That means basically you're adding a drop of like soap to the water reservoir in order to break the water tension, so that the water can penetrate, one, deeper into the stone, and then two, clean a little better. Now the other thing that I noticed in some of the review videos in YouTube and also from the factory is they have a two-sided stone. One's coarser and one's a little finer, and they say you're changing the grit of the stone. Well, that's a crock of horse shit right off the get-go, because this is a 225 grit stone. You're not going to change that. What you're doing with that stone is basically roughing up the surface of your the cutting surface of the stone, so that it gets a little bit more aggressive as it passes by the tool. And then when you put on the finer grind, all you're doing is plugging up the pores of the stone, similar to what you would be doing if you were chalking up a file. A lot of guys that, you know, if you've ever worked with hand files before, when you're filing away, you know, some of us have heard the old saying, chalk up a file or chalk it up. It means you're filling the teeth of the file up with chalk so that it doesn't take quite as an aggressive cut, and it gives you a lot finer finish. And that's the same thing what you're doing here. You're not actually changing the grit of the stone, so don't think that you are. If you have a 225 grit stone, it's going to be a 225 grit stone no matter what you do to it. So that notion that you're changing the grit with the dressing stone, no, that's totally and completely false. Now, the one thing I'm going to have to do probably is upgrade this wheel to the leather strop, and then I also want to get the profile leather strop wheels that go along with it. There's an additional set of wheels that you can put on the side here, but we'll be going through that as this video series progresses. So anyway, this is just an introduction to the Tormek 2000. There's still plenty of them out there on the market. A lot of new ones out there still on the market. It's new old stock. Although this has been out of series for quite a while now. They have the T8, looks slightly different, same concept. Housing's out of aluminum instead of out of steel. Personally, I prefer the steel, not because it, you know, it's a little more robust. The aluminum, granted, it's rust-proof, but there's issues with aluminum that you can't really, cast aluminum in particular, there's you're pretty much limited to what they give you. This, on the other hand, can be modified and hacked to suit the user's need better. So anyway, I hope this is a good start on for the information that some of you out there are looking for. Hope that helps you along a little better. I know now that I've had a chance to look at it and you know, kind of see what it's all about. Now I realize what I've got and can work better, you know, or make better decisions of what you can do with this thing. And so as you guys follow me along in this series, you'll see what all comes up. So anyway, with that, I would like to thank all the current subscribers for stopping by and checking things out, and thanking the new subscribers for signing on. If you guys have any suggestions, thoughts, comments, critiques, by all means, put something in the comment section below. And as I go through these series on, you know, with the, you know, the different technical aspects that come up, I will put, you know, the technical data in the description below. So far, nobody said anything, but I find that information useful for, you know, for myself. And then also, if somebody out there is looking for additional information on the machine or some of the you know, what I'm doing with it, like in the milling, that it helps them out a little bit. So with that, we'll see you guys again soon.